Well, welcome to Fox News Tonight. I'm Will Cain. Man, it must feel good to walk around feeling bulletproof. You know, like you're Hunter Biden, like you're Joe Biden. When whistleblowers reveal texts of the Biden family or Hunter Biden openly threatening Chinese businessmen with the power of his daddy, he accompanies the president to a state dinner. When he finally admits guilt to gun and tax evasion charges, he gets pretrial diversion, just a slap on the wrist. It's never given to criminals with similar charges. And while the world searches for the missing owner of a dime bag, he puts his feet up and chills at Camp David. Maybe it's because Hunter is innocent. Reports are the Bidens left Camp David on Friday, and the coke wasn't found until Sunday. It is pretty hard to believe cocaine would sit around for 72 hours in the White House. So, therefore, it should be pretty easy to clear the Bidens.
Can you just say once and for all whether or not the cocaine belonged to the Biden family?
So, a couple of things there. He mentioned the Hatch Act because the question was posed to him using Donald Trump, and so he was trying to be very mindful. Okay, I hear you, but you're asking me a question, so I'm answering it for you. And so that's why he said the Hatch Act. So I would, have you read the transcript and read the transcript fully so you can see exactly what he was trying to say. So that's number one. So we're not avoiding the question. That is not true. We've answered this question, litigated this question for the last 2 days exhaustively. There has been some irresponsible reporting about the family, and so I got to call that out here. And I have been very clear. I was clear 2 days ago when talking about this over and over again as I was being asked a question. As you know, and media outlets reported this, the Biden family was not here. They were not here. They were at Camp David. They were not here Friday. They were not here Saturday. They were not here Sunday. They were not even here Monday. They came back on Tuesday. So to ask that question is actually incredibly irresponsible. And I'll just leave it there. Okay.
That's not a no. Why can't you just say no? It's not the Bidens' cocaine. It's easy to say no. You do it like this. Let me show you how. No. See? No, it's not irresponsible to ask that question. And no, it's not irresponsible to assume the coke may belong to the only known drug addict in the White House. No, it's not irresponsible to expect a resolution and an answer to this crime. Yes, we believe there are cameras and there is evidence and that you know who's playing Scarface next to the Situation Room. When I walked from my office down to this studio, I passed 7 cameras. That's, of course, not counting all of the cameras around me now in this studio, nor all the cameras in everyone's pocket that catches every stupid Tide Pod swallowing trend but never catches Bigfoot. If I were to walk out of this building, there would be cameras on every corner of this high-rise, on every streetlight, on every crosswalk, on every dashboard of every Uber driver. My life could pretty much be broadcast with seamless jump cuts in a continuous stream without even having to hire a TV crew like Matthew McConaughey did in Ed TV. And I'm just a cable news host. The law enforcement agencies that track down grannies and small-town realtors after January 6th can't break the case of cocaine outside of the Situation Room? Of course they can. They know whose coke it was. They knew on Sunday night. Ask yourself this. If the powdery substance had been anthrax, would this be an unsolved mystery? But, you see, the thing is, we're missing the real story. This story, Hunter, is he guilty? Hunter, is he innocent? That's not the real story, at least according to The View's Anna Navarro, who recently said it's not about drugs or bribery or corruption. The Joe Biden and Hunter Biden story is a story of a father's love. Yesterday, she tweeted, like many, my family's been hit by drug addiction. So many sleepless nights fearing a call saying your loved one is jailed or dead. Joe Biden, like any dad, keeps his son as close as he can and shows support. Attack him as POTUS, but not for being an unconditionally loving dad. Now, as laughable as that is, that the real story is about a father's love, let's play it out. All right, if the real story is about a father's endless love, well, not exactly endless, because it clearly ends generationally at children. It doesn't flow to grandchildren, or at least not all grandchildren. It's a love that ends at illegitimate grandchildren of Pop Biden. But if it is a story of the unconditional love of a father, and by extension, then his willingness to cover up for his crimes, why? What's the worst of the fallout? I mean, it couldn't get much worse for Hunter. He's already a deadbeat dad, an amateur porn star, a crackhead. He's no stranger to mixing capitalism and sex. So what's a little blow in the White House? He'd almost become a legend, like Willie Nelson, who says he once smoked weed on the roof of the White House. And what's the fallout for President Biden? He'd be indicted as a permissive, lax, enabling father. Okay, let's say it's not Hunter Biden's cocaine. If it's just some staffer, what then is the fallout for Biden? That he runs an out-of-control, chaotic White House? You see what I'm getting at? There actually is a real story here. There are those that worry this is a story that just distracts us from the real crimes of the Bidens. But what I see is, if this is the lengths they'd go to make a cold case out of a story about a father's love or bunga parties at the White House, what would they do for a real crime? Like bribery, like influence peddling, like treason? Well, we are learning. We're learning more every day. Gal Luft is the, quote, missing witness in the Biden corruption investigation. He's an Israeli professor who says that in March 2019, he met with 6 members of the FBI and DOJ to lay out his knowledge of influence peddling by the Bidens.
Over an intensive two-day meeting, I shared my information about the Biden family's financial transactions with CFC, including specific dollar figures. But perhaps the most alarming information I revealed was of a mole within the DOJ who shared classified information with Hunter Biden and his Chinese partners. After Brussels, I never heard back from the DOJ, but instead of showing appreciation for my whistleblowing, I became public enemy number 1.
That is a clip from a 14-minute video exclusively obtained by the New York Post, wherein he says Hunter Biden was paid $100,000 a month and Jim Biden, the president's brother, $65,000 a month by the Chinese Communist Party-connected CEFC.
For 4 years, I was senior advisor to the China energy company CEFC, at the same time of its dealings with the Biden family. Under normal circumstances, I would be testifying before Congress about my experience with CFC. Sadly, due to circumstances I shall describe here in this video, I am forced to tell you this story via video.
Yes, now Luft is on the run. He's a fugitive from justice. He's filming that video from an undisclosed location because he has recently been arrested for arms dealing in Cyprus. Now, he says the arrest is political and designed to stop him from testifying before the House Oversight Committee.
I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russia collusion scandal, only this time with China. Sadly, because of the DOJ's cover-up, this is exactly what happened.
So you see, there is a real story. Sick the FBI on opponents, call off the DOJ on your crimes, arrest or intimidate or fire whistleblowers and witnesses, censor as disinformation, unfavorable news and views, weaponize the CIA against Americans. I don't know. It sort of makes sweeping a little coke under the rug seem like child's play.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.